My name is Edward Brandt, or Ed Brandt, or Eddie Brandt. Mr. Brandt, I'm the principal here at Hunterdon Central, and I welcome you as families of the class of 2027 to our basically kind of official start to the school year, it feels like. So welcome. Just to give you a quick overview of the program tonight, a few of us are going to be speaking to you tonight to give you some information. This is being live streamed too, so if there's anything you miss or anything you want to go back and recheck. Also, realize that we're introducing ourselves as people you can reach out to along the way. A few days from now, you go home and a question comes up, feel free to shoot us an email. We'll give you all that information. So tonight, you're here with us. Your children, your students are downstairs with a number of upper class students and a lot of our staff members as a welcome social event for them. If at any point you need restrooms or anything like that, just to give you a sense, the restrooms, there's a set right outside on the other side of that wall. So you can either go right through here or out the back and around the left. So feel free. And again, we're going to have about three basic segments throughout this little presentation. I'm just going to lead off again. My name is Edward Brandt, principal here. And I'll circle back a second, but while we have two other members here, Dr. Moore, Mrs. Hughes, who are superintendent and the president of our board, they're here also to say a few words.
Thank you. So, Mr. Brandt, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Mr. Brandt, the kids are downstairs getting ice cream, right? What do they get? Nothing? All right, next year. I just want to thank you for being here tonight and also for just starting this journey in this way with us tonight. And the question that I always love to ask, well, I'll ask in a second. I do want to introduce one of our most important folks is our Board of Education president, who, with 8 other members of our Board of Education, gives us such incredible support to do the best that we can do each day with your kids. So Mrs. Hughes, our Board of Education president, I do want to give some appreciation to. We've stepped up here from a Board of Education retreat that's going on right now with the other members setting goals for this coming year for all of our students. How many of you have had children come through here in the past? Okay, that's pretty good. All right, here's the dangerous question. How many of you parents went to this high school? Wow. All right, I like to ask that, and it gives me shivers when I see that, because the only point I really want to make for you tonight is in all of the stuff that you're going to hear, in all of the things that your children are going to come home with, this club, that Rita's slushy thing that they had, whatever it is, in all the things that go on here in the beginning of the year, it strikes me, and I want us to remember, there are roots here. Deep, deep roots that I try my hardest every day to respect, and everybody here tries to respect. And it's exemplified by exactly what those hands up. Not just I went here, but also I had a child come through here. But the roots here are incredible, and that's not common in a high school like Hunterdon Central in the suburbs for there to be roots like that. Just know that our staff, our administrators, teachers, paras, counselors, everybody feels that as well. They're working for your children, but they're also working to uphold a tradition and a heritage here in respect to the roots that the community brings. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to continue a legacy of education in your families, not just for your children, your whole families. So thank you for that. Did you want to say anything?
Hi, I just want to say a quick welcome to all the new families and the returning families, and also want to let you know it's important that I'm a parent here as well. I'm the parent of a 2022 graduate and an incoming senior, so I feel what you guys feel. I felt like it in 2018 when my oldest son came here. I thought this was going to be a really scary big place, and it's not. It is a beautiful, wonderful, nurturing place that will take care of your children. So I promise you, your children will have a great experience here, and they will do great things. There is wonderful staff, administration here, and the Board of Education is here to fully support all of the students. So thank you, and welcome again, and I hope your kids have a really good year.
Have a good night, everyone.
Dr. Moore, before you leave, I have one question I want to follow up to the group here. So I started teaching here in 1997, so I was wondering if any of you who went here had me in class. No? All right. Just hit me there. So anyway, yes, my name is Ed Brandt, principal here. Again, started teaching here math in 1997, and was fortunate to spend the majority of my career here so far, and looking forward to continuing so. So I'll do my best to be that conduit between, and believe me, I understand the connection, basically being the math teacher and triangles are number one, that three-way connection of family, student, and staff members here. So it's the strongest. It is the strongest element, if you would, in geometry, so I would say it's also the strongest part of our district here. So you are a part of it, and welcome. The rest of the team, too, that you're going to see tonight. And Mr. Estrada is one of our vice principals here, also taught here, and is the vice principal for your class. We have a house system here where the students have a team, and both Dr. Zerowicki and Mr. Estrada will explain this a little bit further, but basically you have a team that follows your child through their journey here. And we just finished off, and it's pretty wild thinking that the last time I had to speak in public was at graduation of the last group that we just said congratulations to and saw off back there in the end of June. And this same team was there and welcoming you. And also Dr. Zerowicki, who is our supervisor of counseling. She's here this evening to give a lot of information and also helps make sure that that team guides your children throughout their 4 years. We are Hunterdon Central Regional High School. I bring that up. Come on in, folks. I bring that up because there's a few slides here that I talk about the fact that we're also our own district. We have over 2,500 students. Some of them are shared time with Polytech, but overall, on any given day, we have close to 2,500 students here. The class of 2027, you can see here, is over 600. Your team, I mentioned a little bit before too, Mr. Estrada is your vice principal. Carol Rocha is the secretary of the team and your grade level. The three school counselors, Mr. Connolly, Ms. Kelly, Ms. Bush, again, they are aligned up to different parts of the alphabet of your class, and they will follow them all through the 4 years. Mr. Rios also works with many of our ELL students. Katie Egger is our student assistance counselor, who is a counselor who works with students if they need a little higher level than basic school counseling. And again, following all the way through the 4 years. Ms. Jen Nectarline is one of our members of the counseling team that is also our college and career counselor and specialist. And her office is down by me. I'm in the other building. And she works with all grade levels through that process of identifying what career paths they have interested in and then giving them the best avenue to attain that as they leave. So that's a name that, as the years go, it'll be more prominent in your journey. Ms. Jen Amato is the nurse for that grade level. Again, they follow. And it's a key thing to understand. Even though it's a big campus, we try to give the students a feel of a little smaller. It's not, to me, I'm reminded that there's over 2,500 students, but for them, they really don't have to worry about the fact that they have 4 teachers on A day and 4 teachers on B day. And they have 1 nurse, they have 1 counselor, they have 1 vice principal, and that team, again, follows literally with them. So after 2 years, right across the hallway from here is the 9-10 house office. In 2 years, when they make the transition from 10th to 11th grade, the team also moves their offices down to the other building where most of the 11th and 12th grade are. So Mr. Estrada is redecorating his office up here because he just packed up back in June down there, and he's up here again. And a key part, again, obviously the classroom teachers as well, key cogs in this. And I'd probably say, too, especially with email and Google Classroom and things like that, the fact that you have more access than we ever had as students or my parents had when I was a student to get a sense of what's going on in each of those classes. So as one of the big things I'll say over the next few weeks is just take one of those nights or two to sit down and kind of navigate both our school website, but also what the students have in their Google Classroom sites. Those are two things that I would definitely devote some time on. And once you get it down, it's not too bad for the next 4 years. And again, like I said earlier about that triangle U, you're starting a transition right now, especially if it's your oldest, where you're trying to figure out when to let go and when not. Don't let go totally. Have a little tether. The tether's a little longer there, but you are still a key part to this, a huge component to it. So, and we understand that too. So don't feel like we're like, this parent's bothering me again. Not at all. You are part of the team. And you are going to be in the audience going nuts in 4 years out on the football field when we congratulate them in June of 2027. So remember, you are part of this team. Back in the spring, I know that you had different presentations online and such about the program of studies. Hopefully when you were helping your child select courses for this year, you realized we have a comprehensive program of studies. It is amazing. I went to a very small high school. You didn't have any electives to choose from, maybe one your senior year, and that was it. But the number of electives are amazing, even within departments that might traditionally not seem like electives. But we also have tremendous ways for your students to get involved, either honing in their leadership, participation in just social aspects of learning outside of those 4 courses they have each day. And that would be, again, we have 33 varsity sports. Most of the programs go all the way down to freshman level, which is, again, a nice feature to have such a large school, and 80-plus clubs and activities. Right now, as we're in here, the students are downstairs getting to meet a lot of the upper-class students, meeting a lot of the advisors, getting a sense of what they can get involved with. And the same thing's going to happen again tomorrow. And I'll talk more about tomorrow in a second. 2 pieces of information, and you got emails over the summer, but I want to reiterate 2 key facts. So all 9th graders across the state of New Jersey, whether you're in a regional high school or not, all 9th grade students need to have another physical, and it needs to be within 1 year's time of their start of 9th grade. So if it was last spring, last November, for example, maybe for a spring sport or anything like that, they're still good. But you still need to submit, if you haven't already, to our health offices. And also proof of residency. We are our own school district, so it's almost like we have 600 new transfer students. So we don't have all the information, like, for example, proof of residency. You may have moved, even within the district, since you signed them and registered for kindergarten, right? But here you are registering for a new district. So if you haven't already, please find, and this is an example of the lists, but the email that went over in the summer as well from Nancy Tucker, who is our Director of Communications, that had also a printout of what can constitute as a proof. You can drop it off anytime. The vestibule out here, and you'll see on your way out, has a little red box on the wall, and you can drop things in right there. So it doesn't even have to be during regular school time when somebody's here at the booth. So every morning, for example, all summer, somebody from our health office has walked down, checked that mailbox, and come back and then updated that. So these are 2 key pieces right here that are kind of the legal side of things. Also, we have our students are issued Chromebooks. So tomorrow at orientation, your children are going to get a Chromebook issued to them, as well as a charger. They should have gotten emailed and for them to register and stuff, some login information before, but part of the rotation tomorrow at orientation is that they're going to go to the IMC, which is our Instructional Media Center, which is basically our library in the middle of campus. And that's where also our IT department is set up. So they're going to issue a Chromebook there. I do recommend, I shouldn't say that. Consider the insurance. They have that for the next 4 years, but there is optional insurance through our school. And it says it's $30 per year, but for example, the typical cost for the repair of a screen is $50. So it may pay for itself in the end. Consider it. But also that we have a bring your own device as well. So if, say, for example, your child has a device that they're used to using and they just like that better, they can still use it. They can check with the IT department if there's certain features for them to have access to, because it's going to look like it's coming from an outside system. And also we have some items, and I want to point out here, our electronic use policy is a pretty good thing to pay attention to. There are a lot of, dark corners of the web, as you know, so and ways to use the internet. So realize that that device and the access through Gmail, their school Gmail account, or anything else is, even if they're home, it's as if they're on campus. Just a little heads up on that. Bark alert, you might hear about that here and there. It's actually not a bad thing to have at home. Again, not selling it, but that is an alert. So say, for example, there's communication between students, or if a student reports on something, it could be one of their assignments. And I'll explain that in a second too. But if there's communication, either a self-harm or a threat to others, it picks up an alert. And it gives us a sense in the IT department, like, whoop. And most colleges have this as well. If something ending on their system is an alert to take a look at, we'll have a conversation with both you and the child to make sure everything's okay. And then the Go Guardian is a tool also that in the classroom itself, when the students are working on their devices, the teacher has a sense of, without having to walk around all the time, they get a sense of where they are. But again, realize tomorrow that the Chromebooks, they're going to get issued. If for some reason your child can't be here tomorrow to get that Chromebook, on Thursday and Friday of this week, they can check in at the IMC and sign it out there instead, all right? And the last part for me is just to give an overview of orientation tomorrow. We're trying to do two things, give them a crash course and a little bit of everything, but at the same time, trying to get them acclimated with the building. So on our first day of school next week, all of the students, 9th grade and above, report first to an alphabetical homeroom, if you would, regardless of their classes. So they go to an alphabetical homeroom. Tomorrow, they're going to report there first. And they're going to have a group of about 24 students in with them by alphabet. Some of the students, they might recognize that they've been sitting, I was happy to see Joe Burns at our reunions because the two of us sat in homeroom together for 4 years in high school. So they're going to know some students immediately, depending on what school they came from. But anyway, they're going to go to their alpha homerooms. Then as groups, they're going to go to different stations and hit all of these points here. Then they're going to end up back at that alpha homeroom again. Just as a recap, a little message from Mr. Estrada and I, wishing them luck. And then they have some time to walk their schedule to get a sense of, all right. The reason why we have them report back there is to remind them that when they come back again next week and they get off the bus, that's the same room they're going to first. So we try to make the large campus feel a little smaller and at the same time go through all these bullet points here within stations. All right, so that's tomorrow. Mr. Estrada later on will talk a little bit about logistics for the drop-off and pickup for that. But now I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Zurowicki from Counseling Services. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. I'm just going to talk a little briefly about what counseling services is like here at Hunterdon Central. So just to kind of reiterate, these are the important people on the screen. Of course, I'm here, but these are really your go-to people. And so I want you to kind of pay attention to this and try to remember who your child's counselor is and who you go to. Okay. So what does a school counselor do? And the answer is a lot. So they have direct service, right? They meet with students. They meet individually in groups. They meet in classrooms, all sorts of different ways. There's indirect service, right? Maybe it's talking to you. Maybe it's talking to a teacher. It can be through referrals, right? Maybe a student is struggling. And so I want to make sure you guys know that a school counselor does a lot here. Whatever your experience might have been in the past, they're really the central hub of who you're going to connect to help you link those support services, no matter what it might be. And so if you have questions, right, maybe about schedules, course placements, classes, homework, tutorial, activities, pretty much anything, your school counselor can really be that main person and help you decide where to go to next. Even let's say, your student is maybe having a bad day, or there's a family emergency or obstacle that's going on, I really encourage you to reach out to their counselor. And that might not mean that they need, counseling support, that they need to go meet one-on-one, but it's really to make sure that we're in this together. As Mr. Brandt said, is that it's not just a single line, right? We're kind of all have to support the student at the same time. And that might mean maybe reaching out to the teacher, kind of giving them a heads up, just that, hey, there might be something going on in the family. Please keep this in mind. We find that that's incredibly helpful in really building that relationship and making sure that all students, really have those adults here that they feel connected to. And so if you don't remember who your child's counselor is, that's okay. You can find it on the website. If you go to quick links and contact information, you'll be able to scroll down to see the list of counselors, and all of that will be there for you. I saw some people taking pictures, so I'll let you finish that, just in case. Okay, I'm gonna go on. We're good? I still see phones out. All right. Okay. So when is your student going to meet with your counselor? It's kind of a big change, right? Because they didn't officially become ours until July 1st, so we really didn't get to meet anybody. The good news is they've actually met the counselors, right? They went to the 8th grade to meet with them about scheduling and about picking courses. There was the 8th grade open house. And now that they're ours, what'll happen is on that first day when we have got this kind of like alphabetical homeroom, counselors will visit, introduce themselves because it's by alphabet. So they'll have exact rooms that they can go to. They'll meet them at freshman orientation tomorrow. There's small group meetings that happen throughout the first semester, and those are really kind of getting to know you, in addition to individual meetings that they'll have throughout the year. And they also push into different classes, specifically like health and PE. So they go in to talk about counseling services. We do important information about anti-bullying, about substance use, about mental health, and all of that happens kind of throughout the year and throughout their all 4 years here. There'll also be some early college planning that'll happen, like next semester, and that's to kind of just get people thinking about what might they want to do in the future. And so that'll come out from Mrs. Nectarline. And I want everyone to remember, too, that students are really encouraged to stop by during unit lunch. All counselors are available at that time so that students can kind of just stop in whenever. And there's also Block 5. And then lastly, we kind of do some more indirect ways of getting to know students, where students will complete like a student information sheet. It kind of gives a little bit of information about what works for them, what doesn't. What do they enjoy doing on their free time? And that way teachers get to know them as well. Okay, so how can you help your child or your student transition here to the high school? So this is a big change, not just for them, but for you. And so part of that is when you're 13 or 14 years old, this might kind of surprise you, but they are starting to be an adult. So I know that that might be scary, right? I'm not saying they can go off and like live on their own, right? They can't get an apartment by themselves, but what that means is they want to be independent. And so we want to take that and help guide them, because the more they can learn to do that now, the better it will help them in the future. And so now is the time to start that, as hard as it is. Like Mr. Brandt said, right? You kind of want to have the reins a little bit, but give it a little bit more slack. So what you can do is kind of make that transition to be more of a consultant or a coach, if you haven't been doing this already. So what that means is that you're there for them, you listen, you help guide them without giving the answers. And sometimes that's really hard, especially if you see your child struggling. Because when they're in pain or when they're in discomfort, you are too. But I'm really here to tell you that if they can learn to work through that discomfort, it will help them. I'm not talking about like a crisis or anything like that, but just that anxiety, maybe a little bit of fear, tension, The more they learn to do this now, the better they're going to be later. And so what you can do is listen, stay calm, but don't give them answers, as hard as that is. And then model. Model using a calendar. Model setting aside downtime to take care of yourself. A lot of students think that they need to do everything and anything, and it's important to show them we can rest, and it is important to take care of yourself. All of this will help them build their confidence and help them persevere for the future. And then failure. That's a really hard word, but it's also really important. I can honestly say that there are things in my life that I have failed, and I'm sure many of you can attest to that. But we often don't share that, and we get afraid to let our own students and children go through that. But it's through that failure that they learn what works, right? Because now you know what didn't work, so now you try again. And that's the perseverance and self-confidence that we're trying to help them build. So as much as you can, try to find that balance, right? That work-life balance. For them, it's school-life balance between the academics, athletics, the tons of activities that they can get involved in. There's community service and work experience, helping them kind of find that, find what they like to do and help them really develop a plan, but a plan that's really that they can do, right? We want them to feel success and encourage them to explore and take different courses. As Mr. Brand said, we have a lot of electives. There are a lot of classes to choose from. And if you don't get your first choice, that's okay. You have another opportunity. Try different clubs and activities because this will help them find what interests them and make new friends. We're 4 districts coming together, so it's important to meet new people. So some other things you can do to help support them is have a structured homework time. So that might be a time where they put their phone away. Maybe there's a quiet place that they can go to. If you don't have one readily available, the library is a good place. Some students really find success like Panera. Again, I'm not promoting Panera, but you can go there and do some work. Monitor how they're doing, but just not daily. Maybe that's a weekly thing where you guys sit down, you check Aspen. Aspen does have this thing, if the students log into their homepage, it'll actually tell them upcoming assignments. And so you can kind of review that, right? That's kind of modeling about how you check your work and how you decide what to do and prioritize what comes next. And then help them if they need that. Reach out to a counselor, a teacher, a staff member if you're concerned, and help guide them to do the same. We want students to be the ones to reach out as well. But most important, we want you guys to focus on the journey, right? This is a 4-year journey that we all have together, and the counselor is going to be there as a main point of contact throughout the whole time. And so you'll see that every year, counseling focuses on different skills and different things to help guide them to decide what they want to do in the future. And so that can take a variety of different forms. So please know that counseling and counseling services, as well as everyone else on the house team, is here to support you and your student. And I'm going to pass it off to Mr. Estrada.
I swear this light gets brighter and brighter every year. Good evening and welcome. I first want to thank you all for coming out tonight because I know how busy you all are. I'm a parent myself. I have a 20-year-old son who is in culinary school and cooking full-time and living at home and eating all of our food, but now he's cooking it too, so we'll let him stay a while. I've been in your shoes. I've sat there through freshman orientation as a parent, but also now this is my 3rd time, but starting my 4th class to come through Hunterdon Central. So I've been here 10 years. I started in 2013. I can't believe it's 2023 already. And I did just graduate the class of 2023. And they didn't mention anything about Panera, but they did say Chick-fil-A a lot. I don't know if they were studying over there, but I seem to find them always at Chick-fil-A, promoting them or not. They were always there. So my job tonight is kind of more of the overview that Mr. Brandt and Dr. Zerwicki gave to you is a little bit more of the nitty-gritty and the details of what's everyday life look like for them and what's the communication going to look like from my team to you and you to us and how do we work together over 4 years. And I would echo the thought that I've heard so far from both other speakers is that it is a process from, going from that K-8 world we live in. And if you've had older students, older children go through, you've seen that progression already. It's amazing how much they change from the minute they walk in here as freshmen to that stage we just went through in June of 2023. And, the handshakes and hugs that I gave a lot of the kids on the stage and off the stage that day, I'm not crying, they're crying, that kind of thing, very teary-eyed, because 4 years we get to know them so well. And you wouldn't think that with such a big high school, especially coming here maybe from one of the smaller sending districts, and you think, boy, they're going to get lost in the sea here. We work really hard at trying to not let that happen, but it takes two to tango there. We need the student to push to come out of their shell a little bit, make some new friends, get involved in different things, and that's why you're going to hear ad nauseum, join clubs, join activities, make new friends, get to know new people, stay after class, get to know the teacher. The better the teacher, the better the counselor gets to know the child, the better they can help direct and guide more connections for them so they feel comfortable. We'll, of course, be reaching out on their behalf as well because they're freshmen and they may not feel so comfortable to do the reaching out on their own. And that's where that teamwork comes in that we've been talking about. That hard process of coming from the K-8 mindset where we have to, by default, sort of be their lifeline. And now we want to sort of guide and support rather than answer and solve and those kinds of things. I know the hard way from my wife telling me, I'm not asking you to solve my problems, I just want you to listen. So that's kind of how I had to do, that's how I learned how to do that with my own son because the wife trained me well not to do that for them. So communication for me, anyway, as vice principal for your student, you'll hear from me several different ways. I may be emailing out listservs to the entire class. I might be just talking with the students in the hallways, and then might have something great to report to you, and might call home or shoot you an email and just say, "Hey, I met your child today. What a great conversation we had." Or I just was out watching the freshman football team play, and I've been out watching the band practice, and I might come across those. So don't hesitate when you see me at any of those events. Come up and say hello. The better we get to know each other, I think the better team we'll have come 4 years from now. Official communication, as far as what you need to communicate to us, your lifeline here will be Carol Rocha. My grade level secretary for my team is Carol Rocha. She's been here twice as long as I have. She knows everybody under the sun. The kids love her. She gets the biggest round of applause at graduation every year, every 4 years. And she's the one you'll report to when you have to call your child in absent or you send an email in. That's your email contact. You can certainly send it to me and copy me, but if you send it just to me, you know where I'm sending it? Carol. So she's the one that's going to file it. She takes care of your attendance and all those kind of things and checks block by block by block. Is your child in class where they belong? And if not, that's the one who's going to call you and say, I don't have your child in class today, but I don't have a note from you. Are they absent? Are they sick? And then you follow up with a note, send the child in with a note the next day or shoot an email and attach the note, scan the note, things like that. On that note, we are working on a system for October, hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm being told October, where you will be able to access your attendance for your child from home by online, like through Aspen, rather than having to email or call and go through this back and forth. It should hopefully streamline the process for you. We're working on that right now. One of my jobs is safety for the school. So not just me, but the other vice principals and administrators are making sure your child is safe during the day. A lot of the decisions I have to make as a whole, as well as an individual for your child, is going to revolve around safety. Keeping the hallways safe, keeping the environment safe, not just physically, but socially and emotionally. And I'm also the district anti-bullying coordinator, so I sort of have that hat to wear as well. So I do a lot of, my time is spent working on that culture and environment, but specifically for incoming freshmen, I want them to feel that way. I can't make them feel that way, but hopefully we can provide an environment that will do that. So what I want from them and you is if you encounter anything where you don't feel like they're getting that vibe, reach out to me, because that's where I can change something for them. If they don't feel like that lunchroom is the right atmosphere, they're just not getting a good vibe from that, the hallway from block 3 to block 4, it's a little dicey, the sooner I know about it, the sooner I can be on it. And even in a big class of 600 kids, trust me, I will get right to the root of it as quickly as I can, and you'll hear back from me. My communication rule typically is 24 hours. If I do not get back in touch with you in some way, shape, or form within 24 hours of you reaching out to me, voicemail or something like that, even if I'm out of district, I'll have someone else, I'll reach out to them and say, can you get back to so-and-so? If that's just a personal goal of mine, outside of 24 hours, I'm not doing my job. So I will try to get back to you ASAP, hopefully much shorter than 24 hours, same day, an hour or two later, once I clear all the kids from lunch or something like that. At the bottom here, I mentioned these I guess, nervous and anxious feelings about remembering your first day of elementary school, middle school, high school, college, new job, things like that. And I want you to think back to what that felt like, that excitement, the anxiety, the stress. And imagine now your 14-year-old feeling that, and then you feeling that because the parent feels it on behalf of them and all that stuff, right? It's exciting, but it's also nerve-wracking, those kinds of things. There is no normal here, right? Everybody feels differently, the kids and you, so don't be shy about that. And by all means, if you're nervous or curious about anything, just reach out and we'll walk you through it. And share that with the kids too. They'll hear that tomorrow. Goals behind me, I'm not going to read them to you, but I think they're pretty much common sense for about growth and learning. And I want to point out the one that I think is most important is I want them to be at a point there, bullet number 5, where if they can do some of those things on that list, that by the time we get to June of 2027, they're not in a position where they're receiving a lot of it, but they're focusing on how to pay it forward. And I've been blessed with 3 classes that have come through here that have been really, really good groups of kids, and they've gotten to that point. I think it's because of your work and the staff's work around them, and they've grown and developed nicely to the point that when they graduated from here, they were in a position where they felt like they could pay it forward or pay it back to the school and give to younger kids. Your freshmen right now are downstairs with our Red Devil ambassadors, which are juniors and seniors that are here volunteering their time to give back to the freshmen and present clubs and activities and go play volleyball with them and basketball with them and just hang with them a little bit, make them feel welcome. There's signs posted in the hallway that some of our summer clubs and summer students filled out on behalf of their clubs and groups just to welcome the freshmen. It just says welcome in like 5 different languages, and it's time they took out just to help out. So that's that pay it forward mentality that I would love to get them to, and that's going to be one of my goals as their vice principal. And yes, June of 2027 is coming faster than you think it is. Communication, I know Danielle had mentioned, on the website, and a lot of you pulled out your phones to take a picture. My goal, just so you can save your pictures, will be to try in some way get this slideshow to you. I'll send it out in an email listserv to you, to the freshman parent group, just so you don't have to go crazy trying to remember. But on our website, top right-hand corner of our website, from your phone, from your laptop, whatever, there's a quick links button. Probably 70% of the information you will need would be under quick links, and specifically, you'll see a spot that says new students on there, which will address a lot of the FAQs for new student parents. But if you're looking for something on the website, you can't find it, pick up the phone, shoot an email to me or Carol Rocha or counseling or so on, and we'll get the answer for you in no time. I'm glad I mentioned Mrs. Rocha because she snuck in the back. If you would turn your attention to the back left, that is Carol Rocha back there. Everybody say hi, Mrs. Rocha. I'm laughing because she's the shyest person I've ever met, and she hates when I do that to her. But I wanted you to see her face because if you ever come into the building and you have to come to the nurse's office or the main office or something like that, like I said, she's going to be, we call her kind of our class mom. She takes care of the kids in every way, shape, or form, and they report to her. Anything to pass on from the parents at home to the adult at school, she's sort of the person in charge of all things under the roof. My role is more of a team leader. I know people hear vice principal and they think, oh boy, stay out of the vice principal's office. That's always a good idea if you're considering detentions and getting in trouble and things like that. But I do really honestly, genuinely make it a point of mine to build relationships with kids. And I was a teacher and a coach and an athletic director and a summer camp counselor and a dad and all those things. And that, none of that was about discipline. All of a sudden I have this attachment to my job duties that deals with detentions just because I'm in a different position in a school. So I call it student management, not discipline. We're going to help you manage your decision making. Yeah, that's an unfortunate piece of my job, but a lot of times the goal here would be let's get to some of the issues, some of the conflicts, some of the things that might result in disciplinary action. The sooner we can get to that and deal with it at a level 1 before it rises in conflict to level 3, 5, 9, When now we're dealing with things that might be suspendable or retaliation or harassment, intimidation, and bullying and ganging up on somebody, cyber harassment, if we just get to the bottom and teach the kids how to mediate their conflicts, we're in good shape. Sounds so simple, right? I'm sure you've never had any conflicts with your middle school children at all. So the sooner they will want to do it on their own. That's what I've encountered with ninth graders, but they're not quite ready yet in that progression. They know some skills that will help them, but in the moment, the ability to regulate their emotion is not always under control yet. It takes practice. And so I might bring them in my office and sit them down together, have a conversation, and give them a chance to kind of work through that. Practice, right? But the key is getting to it early. So if you see something going on at home that's kind of tricky, you might be hearing something through the grapevine that there might be this conflict going on, there's no problem with reaching out to the school counselor, to myself, and put a little, bug in our ear, give us a heads up, and we'll get out in front of it before it becomes an issue. That's a better way to handle it on our end. If you have questions regarding classroom content, yes, I can be a point of contact, but I'm going to direct you to the person you should talk to anyway, and that's just that ladder. You're going to always go to the source, which is the classroom teacher. If something in terms of what you're experiencing in the classroom is not to your satisfaction, you go to the classroom teacher's supervisor. And then at that point, I would kind of get involved. If you're still not happy with it, then really I'm kind of advocating for both. How do we get to a good resolution here? I rarely deal with that. Usually it gets resolved. If you go to the classroom teacher and communication is early and often from them to you and from you to them, same thing as the kids. Let's get it at a low level before it rises. That's where I would need you to kind of pick up on your freshman's angst about a class or a situation, because they don't always feel comfortable coming to me this early or going to a counselor or going to a teacher. So you can kind of put a bug in our ear and say, hey, can you talk to so-and-so in passing? Don't make a thing. Don't pull them out of class. And, I'll catch them in the hallway or see them in lunch, and we'll get to it then. And then it's a little bit more casual and they don't feel so awkward. Website for the school calendar and events is on the calendar for school events is on our website. So again, that's one of the key ones. If your kid is looking for clubs and activities, that's up there. Any events going on. I know football in the fall is a big deal because it's a social event. A lot of kids love to come to the games. I think our first home game is this Friday night, right? School messenger emails, you'll see the name Nancy Tucker. You probably have seen it a lot. She's our head of communications here. So she sends out a lot of listservs and emails, and she often will get emails directed back to her to get questions answered. At this point, now that you know who I am and some of our contacts, you're better off coming through me or my house office team to get those answered, because Nancy's just going to send it to us. She's going to say, can you help this parent? Because it's specific to the grade level. Yeah, jump in. Yeah.
If you don't mind me just adding one thing with that. One of the things I've learned is the fact that we do have that transition from one district to another. I know you've gotten emails about checking your contact lists and things like that, and also the school messenger. Don't assume that everything that came from the 8th grade was complete. So look into that. Make sure if you updated your cell number or something like that from a few years ago.
Yeah, good point.
That you update it with us. And now's a great time to do that. And the number of emergency contacts. Sometimes the transition again from one district to another, not all the emergency contacts come with it. It might be the first initial two or whatnot, but some of the emergency ones may not be in there like you assumed if it's coming from the 8th grade.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many times we go into contact home and there's only one in there. So now that you have access to Aspen, go in and check the contacts tab and make sure the folks that you want in there are in there. And I would encourage you to put in more than you think you might need. If the child has one parent or two parents, they're in there, but if I can't get a hold of either one of you and we have an emergency, they're injured, or I need to get a hold of you in a really timely fashion, sometimes getting a neighbor or even a cousin that lives an hour away, an uncle or an aunt, somebody that can drive and pick up the student in an emergency, is better than, you might be in a work meeting that's 2-3 hours long. You might be on vacation. You might be taking care of your parent 3 states away. I've encountered all of this stuff, and you wouldn't think, well, this would happen in the one time I take a trip away, and sure enough, it does, right? All right, day one for the students. Some of these slides were designed for when we used to have freshman orientation, and we'd bring all the students in. At the end of the day, we'd meet here, and we would walk them through, what's day one look like for you? So I kept 3 of these slides in there just to give you an idea of what that looks like. The first thing is I would encourage you all that if you have a bus available in your district of where you live, to put them on the bus. I'm gonna walk you through the chaos of what our mornings look like, and if you've had other kids come through here, you'll know, you can attest to this. We have about 70 to 80 buses that roll in and out of here every morning. Just fathom that right now. 75 buses roll in and out of here every morning. Then we have all the parents that want to drop off their precious little egg to the front door, right? It's raining today. We're going to get you right to that front door, right? This is that leash we talked about. Tether that leash. Let them go. Raincoat, umbrella, something, or just a wet hoodie. I don't know. If you can take the bus, take the bus. Now, again, everybody has their own reasons why they might not take the bus, but by and far, it's going to be, number one, if you're running late or your child's running late, they do get dinged for tardies here, and we'll talk a little bit about that, what that looks like for that responsibility. But if they take the buses arrive here 7:15 typically. Block 1 starts at 7:35, so that gets them on campus, gets them established, gets them into that mindset of being early. On time means early. Go to the restroom, take your time. They can go to the cafeteria, buy bagels, coffee, water if they want to, or they can sit and relax and do that homework they didn't finish last night or whatever they need to do. But it puts a little bit of that stress of the morning away. And it also doesn't stress you out because you're either rushing them or they're rushing you, and you don't have to leave until 8 to go to work, and they want to get to school, you know, that whole push and pull. So the bus is the best way. Now, I will tell you, freshmen love to take the bus. Tongue in cheek, they hate it, right? They want to be driven. They want older brother or sister who has a parking spot to drive them, or a friend to drive them. The last thing you want to be is on a yellow school bus. But the other reason you don't want to be driving here in the morning is because we have 500 brand new 17-year-old drivers driving on campus every morning. I'm here before 7 because there's no way I'm on those roads with those kids. No way. Good luck, right? So you might have one. You might have a senior as well as a freshman that you know what I'm talking about. So it's chaotic. And I will tell you that you get a few raindrops, a few little snow flurries, and then that line on Walter Fran Boulevard is 1.5 miles long, and now you're 10, 12, 15 minutes late. They're late. Everybody's stressed and anxious, and they have a quiz block 1, and if they're on that bus, they don't have to worry about that. If the bus runs late, there's a road blocked or something like that, there's no penalty to the student when the bus runs late, but there is when they run late. So my suggestion, and yes, I'm promoting that, unlike Panera. All right. Yeah, get them to establish a routine. Classes begin at 7:35. That Alpha homeroom Mr. Brandt mentioned is 1 day only, really. I mean, we might go back to it like once a year, twice a year, but it's really every other day. Once we get past day 1, they just follow their schedule, and they go to block 1 on a day, and they go to 4 classes, right? They're 80-minute blocks. We go to block 1, block 2, go to unit lunch, and go back to block 3 and block 4. So it's a half a day, lunch for the whole school, including staff. And then I don't know why we thought that would be a good idea. We do it really well. You'd be shocked. We feed 2,500 kids and 300 staff members in 45 minutes and get right back to class. It's amazing. I don't know how we do it, but we do it well. But it is a little chaotic. So that's going to be, in my opinion, their biggest transition. They're used to being micromanaged in the middle schools and elementary schools, where staff's job is to really kind of watch their every little moment. I mean, 12-year-olds you can't leave them alone for 10 seconds. Here, they're going to find that we almost treat it like a college campus, where we loosely supervise. We will be on the perimeter of a cafeteria. We won't be kind of hovering over and listening to every word, and they get that push and pull of the freedom. Freshmen can struggle with that freedom, with peer pressure and groups, and they think nobody's looking. We're looking, we're just trying to give them that leash a little bit, right? So we're trying to kind of balance that out. I would suggest, when possible, for them to find a location to sit and relax and enjoy their lunch, not run around like crazy recess, like elementary school. That's when the trouble starts to begin. They get bored, they think they're not supervised, and then they make poor decisions. During unit lunch, we'll get into details of it later, but they have a wide range of places that they can eat during the day. And so I'll talk about that in a minute, but that's what I mean by that. Dismissal, you should have bus information in Aspen, your bus pickup time, your bus drop-off time, the location, and the bus number. The student may not know where the bus is lined up in our chute, right, yet, but they will learn on day 1. Do you have updated information on that? Okay. You mean the bus info I was just talking about? Okay, so that I know that exists, and it normally is in there, but it's just got to get updated and corrected before they put it into Aspen. So we actually dismissed the kids a little bit early on day one. The whole school, we dismissed at 1:50 to give them extra time to find their buses, see where they're parked. They will be pretty much in the same spot in Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3 every day. So they know if they're in Zone 1 and they're the third bus on the right, that will be third bus on the right in Zone 1 for 180 days, right? So whether they're in Block 1A, or they're on A day or they're on B day, all the buses line up the same. It might be off by a bus or two if the bus is caught in traffic or something when they pull in, but for the most part, it'll be right in that vicinity. If they're confused, they're lost, which some of them will be, can you help me find so-and-so? Just find an adult. We put a ton of adults out there, and they come to us and they say, can you tell me where bus 75 is? And we hop on the walkie-talkie and we talk right to the bus driver and we say, where are you at? We point them right in the direction. Down at the bottom, really important thing here. I don't know why this gets lost for some kids, but it does, or maybe even the parents. As you can imagine, school this big, 3,000 kids roughly, a little under 3,000. Keeping tabs on 3,000 teenagers is difficult. We need your help in that, and that's where Carol Rocha needs your help in that. If you need to take your child out of school early, whether it's more urgent, like they're not feeling well, and like, I don't feel well, I want to go home, I'm feeling sick, and they text you that, right, during lunch, they have to be processed through the nurse's office or the house office, right? If it's an illness, obviously we want them to go through the nurse's office and talk to Jen Amato so she can document why they're going home, and it's excused. That's a key thing for you and your child for credit attainment. They don't miss blocks 3 and 4 unexcused. They go to the nurse, that gets excused because they're ill. If they just get picked up and walk out, technically they're not just cutting class, they're truant. I've been caught as a VP in some tricky situations where I had a kid leave campus, parent knew where they were, but they also didn't do their job. So I'm relying on you to give us some help and do your job and make sure you communicate with us when the child needs to go home. Because yes, kids can find their way out of here pretty easily during passing time and lunchtime and things like that where there's a lot of movement on campus. So we need to make sure we communicate well on that, okay? All right, this was the details about the unit lunch. This is unlike anything they've ever experienced before. Usually, and I think you guys can probably remember this, what lunch was like. You got about 24 minutes, you wait in the line, you get this typical lunch food, you wolf it down and then hurry up because like lunch is over. The next lunch session's coming in. The biggest struggle for freshmen is they're used to that, so they eat in about 20 minutes. It's in. And now they have 20 to 25 minutes left to do whatever they want, and they're bored and they'll walk around, and that's where they get into some rambunctiousness and get into silly stuff. So tell them to take their time, enjoy that quiet lunchtime for a little bit. It won't be quiet in the freshman calf, but enjoy the lunchtime a little bit, and not be in such a hurry to go running around like crazy and treat it like recess. 46 minutes is actually a long time to eat. We do make food available to them in the cafeterias. In this building, there are 4 places they can eat, 3 that serve the food, right? So they're down there right now near the cafeterias. There's a little smaller one down below that on the bottom level. But there's like kiosks like you'd see on a college campus with warmers, like over by the IMC near the bridge. They'll have like burgers and pizza and fries and stuff like that. It's like to go. So a kid can grab that. There's a swipe machine there they can pay on their ID, and we'll get into that in a minute. They can go sit out at the stadium, and on a nice day like today, it was like 80 degrees, and they can just relax out there. They can go out on the turf and play soccer. They can throw a football around. They can play their instrument for band. I mean, I have kids, it looks like a college campus. Kids are sitting in the hallway, they're playing a guitar. Other kids are writing poetry. Other kids are sleeping. They're doing whatever they want to do for that time, and they really have a lot of freedom with that. But we give them parameters as to where they can be. So they can't leave campus, obviously. 7-Eleven's not an option, as good as their taquitos are, from what I am told. That's disgusting, but yeah, anything on a roller for 3 hours, we can leave that alone. But they're taquitos, Mr. Straw, they're really good. So not leaving campus, no Dunkin', no 7-Eleven, none of that stuff. And then, no parking lots, obviously, for safety. On the covered walkway path, right through the middle of campus, anywhere in the buildings. And upstairs levels are off limits during lunch. They stay on the main level. And in our hallways, the kids used to just sit in the hall and literally just kind of hang out, lean up against the lockers and talk with their friends, do a little homework. And we noticed that they were doing that, and we started to take out all the lockers that nobody uses anymore, and we replaced those lockers with just benches. And so we're making better use of the space, and kids can, it doesn't feel so boxed in a cafeteria where everybody's hip to hip trying to squeeze into a table and fight for a table. We're giving them more space to spread out and just relax. So that's new this summer. We just finished that project, and if you get a chance, back to school night, you'll be able to see some of those things. They can eat on either campus, the 11-12 or the 9-10. If there are conflicts or issues or the behavior's not where we need it to be, then I tend to bring them back up here and say, you need to kind of be near me. And near me means, like, very loosely our building, right? Like, I need you up here. But again, it's credit-based, right? You earn it. And right now, they've all earned it. They all have it. It's theirs to lose, right? So we'll rein that in where appropriate, and then we'll expand it back out as necessary. Important for them, one thing on there was important for them to be on time to block 3. They get to 46 minutes. At the 10-minute mark before lunch ends, we ring a bell. Hey, you got 10 minutes to get to block 3. At 5 minutes, we ring a bell and give them another reminder, get to block 3, because the 2 blocks that they're most late to is block 1 and block 3, because they're lollygagging with lunch and they're hanging with friends, and they didn't realize, oh my goodness, the bell rang and I'm all the way across campus for my block 3 class. So day 2 is a little different. They'll start with their block 1 class, and we extend block 1 a little bit, and we go over all of our safety and security information with them. We show them a video. We practice some drills that day. We talk about lockdowns and fire drills and hold in place, shelter in place, relocations, evacuations, and we walk them through all that. We give them a chance to ask questions to their teachers. Anything the teacher can't answer, they send to the vice principals. The key vice principal that's in charge of all safety and security is the 10th grade vice principal, Mr. Ebner, but we all know the answers to those questions. So we would, if they go through that on day 2 and they have questions about anything safety and security, or they come home to you and you have any questions about safety and security, reach out and we'll take care of those answers for you in terms of like those types of drills and what do we do when we relocate and so on. And then day 3 is that A day again, and we go right back to a regular bell schedule. Our attendance policy here follows the New Jersey state law. And if you want to take a picture of this, you certainly can, but again, it's on the website, and I'll try and send this to you. This is probably the biggest adjustment for students and parents that have had attendance issues in the past. I know middle schools will say attendance is really important, and it's data supports being in school and success in your classes just by being present and things like that. But ours is actually policy. They have to get 120 credits for graduation, and they will not earn credit if they exceed the number of absences in any given course. So we work on an A-day, B-day schedule, right? Let's take, for example, a freshman English class. That is a full year class. They meet every other day. They meet every A-day, block 1. They meet 90 times, half of the 180 days, right? So you see up on the 90 sessions behind me. If they get to 5 unexcused absence, which is the halfway point, you'll get a notice home just giving you a heads up. Hey, warning, they're at a halfway point. If it's October and you're getting that letter, call me. We've got to put a plan together. There's an issue here, and maybe some of these absences should be excused. We don't have doctor's notes. What's going on? Let's get on top of it. You'll probably hear from me before that because I'll be proactive about it. So the state law issues 10% unexcused absences is what your limit is, which is why we come up with these numbers here. For a 90 sessions, you get 9 absences, 10% of the number of times you meet. Once you exceed that 10%, then you go into loss of credit. We do have an appeal process, so when you reach that 9 absences, you'll get a letter home, not a warning letter this time. It'll say, so-and-so has lost credit in English 1. And there'll be a purple form attached to it because that'll be an appeal form. I would highly encourage you at that point, you and I will have already been talking, trust me, to appeal that if it's something that you really feel like should be appealed and overturned because of extenuating circumstances, then I would be your advocate there because I would go to the appeals committee on your child's behalf after speaking with you, after knowing the situation, and kind of like going to court and saying, okay, next up we have John Adams, and this is what's going on, and this is why I think he should get the credit restored. Okay, so I don't want to get into too details on the appeal, but this, again, the sooner we communicate about that while it's a level 1 before it becomes a level 10, the better chance we have of your child not losing credit. and be in touch with me sooner than later. Because once it reaches that threshold, if I have no communication from you, no notes that are excusing it from a doctor or a family, a death in the family, religious holiday, those are all things that are excused. I just need to know and have documentation. So if they're not on file, there's not a leg I can stand on for you. And I want to be able to advocate for you and your child. So the same thing would happen with the 45 sessions. The top two are the two most common classes your child would take. A full year class, which meets 90 times, or what we call a semester class. They only meet 45 times. So semester one, you're going to see the schedule in Aspen, and it's going to have classes, let's say an elective or the PE class, ceramics would go from September to January. And then start of semester two, they'll pick up another elective class that'll look a lot like college semesters. And those are 2.5 credits versus the full year course, which is a 5-credit course. Then there are some exceptions, which is the 135 sessions, 180 sessions, and a lot of times those are some of our AP courses, things that meet more than 90 times in a year, but the 10% rule still applies. There are exceptions to these numbers, of course, like any other rule or law or policy, there are exceptions. A student that may have an attendance limit that has been expanded because of an IEP or a 504, medical reasons, things like that, and of course that would come in with the student, right? We would already know that, and then we would be communicating along the way. I'm going to put on my vice principal / anti-bullying hat on this one. I've been the anti-bullying coordinator here for going on 4 years, and I would say the biggest trend for where our conflicts arise the most are social settings, but in the world we live in today, that means social media, not social as in the cafeteria or gym. It still happens in a locker room, in a cafeteria where there's this bullying or intimidation stuff in typical teenage behavior that gets out of hand. But good majority of it, I think 75% of it 2 years ago when we looked at our data, 75% of our HIB investigations took place through cyber harassment. It involved phones. So we made some changes into where we allowed students to go with phones, what it looked like when they traveled down the hallway to go to the bathroom, things like that. Are they bringing their phones with them or not? So it's really hard for you, as we're telling you, to sort of guide and push the leash away a little bit and not be so on top of them, to let them spread their wings a little bit. But then we're asking you to pay attention and rein it in as well, because this is where we need your eyes and ears, and they've got to make good choices. Most of our HIB incidents come from our freshmen and sophomores. And you would imagine that, right? Developmentally, maturity-wise, they're just not making good choices yet. They're working on it, right? And they're struggling with that. So the Snapchat thing is a big one. Whoever invented that is the root of all evil. It goes away. I can't believe they designed it to send a message that could be the way that the kids use it to be threatening or discriminatory, and then it just disappears and you can't track it. That's not good for them. It builds bad habits. It's not good for credibility or accountability. And you all know this from social media, being able to kind of be with the thumbs instead of having a face-to-face conversation, make eye contact with another peer or an adult, and work on those skills, those soft skills, which are so important. If you don't know this, Instagram, the kids know Finsta is a very common thing, and it's so common now that I would say I'm ready to take it off of my trending. It's old. Kids don't even have Finsta much anymore, right? That's a fake Instagram account. So they have an Instagram account you can see, but they got a Finsta you can't see, right? That they had a second account that they created. It goes under a different name, and only their friends can see that one, right? Or their peers at school. So these are some of the things that might be happening. But the picture on the top right, this is sort of what we deal with. I think you probably deal with this if you take your kids. So I remember taking my high school kid out to a restaurant, and his head would be buried in his phone, and I just said, absolutely not. Either that stays in the car or in your pocket or something, but we're going to communicate eye to eye here tonight. So that's what we deal with here at the school. If you walk into the cafeteria, you'll see 8 kids at a round table down in the senior caf, and 5 of them will be buried on their phones with their head down, and they're not socializing the way it's designed to do during that social time. It's very different than the way you and I may have grown up with socializing, right? So we actually encourage them during that downtime to put the phones down, make eye contact, laugh, make jokes. My kids played board games and card games and stuff with the seniors last year just to encourage the interpersonal behavior. Unfortunately, we have to talk about this. This is an unfortunate, necessary conversation we have to have, because this is trending. This is not an old thing. Maybe the devices have changed, like the top left in the palm. That's like an old Juul, was the name brand when these first started coming out. I hardly see them anymore. So these are vaping devices, and some of these vaping devices are not just nicotine vaping, they're THC oils. So you have an illegal substance that's not just age requirement, but it's illegal in general, right? So we have from a what would be considered a smoking device, like we had cigarettes back in the day, to now marijuana use. So bottom left, over here, these are THC devices right here. This name brand is Smoke, S-M-O-K. Very distinct look. That's a nicotine device. This would be a charging device right here. You guys can see my cursor, right? Okay, good. So USB device that on the back end over here charges the battery that this piece sits in. So this is a THC device here, a THC liquid here, the actual cart. If you hear your kid mention the word cart and they're not riding go-karts, K-A-R-T, they're talking about a THC cart. And this is one example of a charger for that. Here's another THC device here. Obviously, the candy-colored look on these things, this name brand here in the middle is Flare. This is probably the most popular thing in middle school and high schools right now that I'm finding here at the school. And I've talked to other administrators from other schools, and that's what they're seeing the most of. If you think they're not marketing to your teenage children and they look like popsicles, yeah, okay. And I think the latest one we were talking about recently is now highlighters. They look like highlighters, literally yellow, bright yellow, fluorescent yellow, and they're vapes. And there's no way they're designed for adults, right? Adults are not walking around smoking highlighters, I hope. I hope the kids aren't either, but that's what we're kind of on we're always trying to stay on trend, and this is what we're up against. So I bring this to you not to start the night on a negative note, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, because these things do exist. You may have encountered them already. You might have older children. You might use these products. You're an adult. They're not welcome in the building in any way, shape, or form, and we have policies and regulations and laws that prevent that. There's consequences that come that way. So what I often will tell the kids is, I'm not going to tell you how to live your lifestyle, right? Everybody has to make that choice, and that's a family choice. I would love to see you not do anything harmful to yourself, but you darn sure know that you can't bring it here. You can't have it here, because then it's double trouble, right? So if you have questions about this sort of stuff, you find something in your house and you're like, oh, I don't know, send me a picture of it. Bring it in and show it to me, and I'll walk you through it. It doesn't get your kid in trouble. It's something you found at home, and I'll just, from an educational standpoint, I'll tell you what it is. And, I can give you some guidance on what your options are, who are your supports in the community, what are the supports at school. We have student assistance counselors here that deal with a lot of substance abuse issues, whether it be something like nicotine or THC or a harder drug than that. And that's completely confidential from that standpoint. I don't get any information from that. That's something you can do to connect your child with them and make that happen either in the building, or we can give you resources outside the building. We are in touch with quite a few community resources. So nothing to really go into great detail here tonight, but if you're thinking about that or you've encountered that or have concerns about that, by all means reach out to me, because ultimately we want to keep the kids safe. That's at the end of the day, that's our goal. On that note, one of those resources that we find a huge help to us is actually very local to us, called Prevention Resources, and they're right on Walter Fran Boulevard. They sent me some recent slides, and this, again, I'll try and get this to you, but if you have a phone and you want to scan that QR code behind me, you're welcome to do that. That'll take you to their website. You could save that as a favorite. There's some good information about how to talk to your teenage child about things like the stuff that we all want to kind of get on top of, right? You get to high school, kids are going to talk about, if they're not already doing it, wanting to go to a party. Is there going to be drinking there? Are there going to be vapes there and things like that? What type of activities? And it's not like we can just pick up the phone and say, well, I want to know every adult that's going to be around and contact it. I'm sure your child would love to give you all that information, right? So it's, again, push and pull of trying to figure out, how do I keep them safe or talk to them about these things without being overbearing, and then they shut down and they tell me nothing. So these folks are great, and they'll give you as much resources as you need. They'll pick up the phone and talk to them on the line, or they can share information with you. It's another thing that the students can download. I have the app on my phone as well. It's called the Help app. county, state, and national hotlines and resources for teens and families. It gets students into the mindset of reaching out for help without being in trouble for things. They might be in a situation where they're in a social setting at a party or something like that, and someone is in need of help, and they're afraid to call because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. So they're trying to work with students, work with teenagers on how to do that appropriately to help someone who's in need of help without worrying about the trouble side of it. So there's ways to do that, and this is a great app to have. So I will be pushing this app for them so they can have resources in a confidential or an anonymous format. We do have sensors now in all of our restrooms, and I know the kids commonly refer to them as vape sensors because if we're introducing chemicals into the bathroom and I'm 15 or 17 years old, the most common chemical that would be introduced in that bathroom that it would pick up on is a vaping device. And so that's probably our most common hit that we get as far as an alert. But I want you to know that they're in there for safety reasons besides just vaping. Everything that's up there on the screen behind me, it alerts us to all those things. So somebody yells help, or there's a loud bang that's not a normal frequency of a loud noise, it'll give us a sound alert, a temperature alert, a masking alert. That bottom right, vape masking. A kid took body spray or Right Guard deodorant and sprayed it, it would pick up on it as something's trying to mask. And kids will try to mask with something and then vape. So that it doesn't pick up on the vape. We've had a lot of it happen already, but they don't realize it's picking up on the masking as well, which is an issue, because now I have a concern about what's going on in that bathroom. So our hall monitors, duty release aides, myself perhaps, Mr. Brandt perhaps, might show up at that bathroom and ask those kids to come with us and tell us what's going on in the bathroom, that we have an alert going on that you're spraying something on the sensor. But everything that's a danger as well, toxins, nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, it picks up on all those things too. So it's a really good safety device that speaks to more than just vape. That's your cue to let Mr. Cohen know that we have about 5 minutes left. That's your cue to go, thank goodness. I hope you all ate dinner, because I remember these nights where it's like your head's starting to pound and you had the dinners at home or Chick-fil-A, who knows, right? Drop off for tomorrow. If you're not familiar with the campus, we will commonly refer to this entrance right here of the 910 building where most of you came in as the fountain entrance. There's a big fountain right there off of Route 31 northbound at the light. That's our most common, drive-by. That's what everybody sees, the fountain entrance. The IMC entrance, if you were to go to that very next light, make a right onto, I think it's Junction Road at the sign, but it ends up becoming Foran down the end of the road. You can come into the IMC from there. And if you keep going further down, if you've been here for other events that have to go near the field house or the commons, there's access to those parking lots down there closer to Costco. So there's about 5 or 6 parking lots you can access along the perimeter. This is the very first one, and most of your 9th grade stuff that happens will be right in this main drag here. You are sitting in the 200s hallway. All of our English classes are right down this hall. All of our history classes are right above us. And of course, all of our theater classes right here in this hall. So a lot of the kids will be taking classes right in here. The nurse's office is right there. The house office with counselors, me, and the secretary are right there. And security, front desk, and where we would exit for pickups, early dismissal, picking up your child for a doctor's appointment, right there. So this is the hub for 9th and 10th grade year. Once they become juniors, then it gets a little bit more vast down there on the other campus. So for tomorrow, you have 2 choices on where you want to come in and drop off based on where you're coming from. So if you're coming 31 North, I would recommend you come in right in that main entrance, which is the fountain right here. And then all these parking lot access right here is going to be blocked off. So unless you have pre-arrangement for a student with special needs, this would be our drop-off here for special needs for Mr. Rebholz. A student might have a one-to-one aid, needs assistance getting in the building. This is our best access for that. Everybody else that comes in off of 31 is going to go right where these arrows are. You're not going to go into that bus lot right there. There'll be a little sign or a person standing there that will direct you winding down. And then once we're going to try and get you all the way up to this first X. This section will be closed off with a gate. And this will be one-way traffic going all the way out the back of the field house. But your drop-off is right here. So that's called the practice football field. When you guys come down into this area, you're just going to pull up into a convoy of cars, and we're going to drop off 6 or 8 worth onto the grass at one time. All those kids that are in that grass are going to walk down here to a person while you guys all vacate the chute. And then once the chute is vacated, then we'll cross them into the crosswalk and into this building. And right in here is all the cafeterias and then the gyms and Alpha homerooms tomorrow, right down these 2 halls. So this is where they'll be most of the morning. But your drop-off is here. Your other option, if you're coming from over here, is Costco. Way down there is Walmart and all that. If you're coming down this road here, coming from like 523 or 31 southbound, you come in by Walmart, you can come in right into the IMC right here. You're going to come in by the tennis courts, go up that chute by the tennis courts, and then we'll make a little convoy right here, drop off at this exit, and they'll go right in that same door these guys are coming in. They'll just walk up the steps and in, and we can unload 6 or 8 cars right there, and then you guys go right back out the IMC. Just be aware when you go back out the IMC lot, I think you have to make a right, because this will be closed off to go left because of all the traffic. Obviously, we'd have a bog down. Just close up on that practice football field where the red is where your drop-off is, and same thing for IMC. Make arrangements with your child for tomorrow for pickup spot. It's, again, 600 kids coming in, 500, 600, a lot of cars at pickup time. At the end of the day, they're going to walk their schedules, and they may be all over the campus figuring out where's block 1, where's block 4, where do I eat lunch, where should we meet up after school. So you can pick any of those spots. This middle circle is the IMC lot. It's going to be pretty packed. This is, of course, going to be pretty packed. Your best bet, you have all these parking lots down here. If your child is a student athlete, it might be a good idea to meet them near where their locker rooms or fields might be and whatever. But that's advice for you, just so you're not sitting in traffic for like 20 minutes to get out of here. A reminder for the folks that are out front, not that I'm trying to push the other classes' gear, but I know they had leftover bags from the class of 2026's sale last year. Some of them are sort of just fabric bags, and others are like thermal bags where you can keep cold and hot things in. Different price points for both and what you can do with them, but they're for sale outside. Class of 2027, actual class of 27 shirts. The link is here. Again, I'll try and get this to you, but our class advisor, Ms. Pulak and Ms. Massimi, are going to email that to all the students and you as well. They'll send you that link directly if you're interested in purchasing a shirt. And I believe School Store is always selling general Hunterdon Central paraphernalia. One of the things I would recommend, students will often misplace their ID, and I know for me, I have the phone case that has like credit cards, driver's license and stuff that I put right in the back here. We sell a little HC logo stick-on right onto the back of their case that holds their ID. So if they're the type of kid that might lose things, I'd recommend that as one option. It's like $2 to get one of those. And then the other option I recommend, kids aren't a fan of wearing the lanyard. It is in our code of conduct. They're supposed to wear the lanyard. I know, some, right, pick your battles. So what I'll tell some kids when they lose the ID, I teach them how to tie the lanyard itself around the handle of their backpack. Put the ID part on the inside and leave the tie on the top of the handle of the backpack. And that way, wherever their backpack goes, the ID goes. But I know that the backpack might get lost, but this isn't getting lost. So I actually encourage the stick-on the back of the phone because I know they're not leaving home without the phone. So just a thought, that's School Store, and I think they're actually selling some out there. They're a couple dollars. So things to remember that were reviewed tonight are on the board behind me. And again, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. I know it's a lot to take in for the beginning of the school year. If you have questions about anything we missed tonight or you need more information on anything, please reach out to me or Mr. Brand or Dr. Zerwicki moving forward. I can see you itching. You have something you want to add, don't you? You good? I'm good. Okay. I'll thank you personally for coming out, and I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Brandt. Thank you.
And again, next time you'll see him in a big group like that in 4 years, congratulating all of you guys as parents of graduates. But so while we were actually in this meeting, so Mrs. Tucker actually updated our website where if you go on to the new student area, it has the Alpha homeroom assignment for tomorrow morning. All right, so if you go home tonight and say, hey, by the way, real quick, why don't we just make sure we're all in good shape here about tomorrow morning? You'll see, little side note too, if you don't mind me sharing, a funny, quirky thing. you realize students don't often see a list that says, like, for example, Ahern to Brant, right? But their name's somewhere in between that. They don't see that too often. So a lot of students are like, I don't see my name on here. And I'm just saying. But they don't see it too often, so you might want to mention it. But anyway, so it'll show, a group. Your name might not be on there, is what I'm saying. So if it's Ahern to Brant and you're in between, you can see the room number that they are reporting to tomorrow morning. All right? So it's not on their regular schedule, is why I bring it up. All right? But we will have also signs in the hallways to help them, but it's not a bad thing for tonight. All right? Again, thank you very much. 3 people of your team right here to help you throughout, and good luck. And the students are on their way up. They can meet you out here in the hallway or out by your car.